The one, the only son of God himself, Mr. Andre Ward. How are you, my man? You good?
I'm great. Happy to be on with you guys.
Listen, before we talk boxing, Super Bowl this weekend, man. You're obviously in the Bay Area, taking in the Seahawks and the Patriots. Who's your pick, man? Give me some expertise. Where's this going?
Yes, I'm going with the Seahawks. My wife's from the Pacific Northwest. She's a Seahawks fan, and I'm not a Seahawks fan, but I've been watching. You know, I love the head coach. I think it's his second year at the helm. And I just like the temperament of the Seahawks, man. I saw them when they, won the game to go to the Super Bowl, and they had the Kobe thing going on. You know, they were happy, but they weren't too happy. They knew that the job was not done, and I think they're going to get it done on Sunday.
There you go. For everybody listening in the UK, Andre Ward said it's going to be the Seahawks, so that's where your money should be going if you're going to be having a little bit of a responsible bet, all right? Let's get stuck into some boxing, man, because we've got lots to talk about. I want to talk extensively with you about Zuffa and their offering over in the United States. But before I do that, I just want to reflect on last weekend and the performance of Shakur Stevenson. Talk me through it, man. It was, different level.
Yeah, I expected more from Teofimo from a resistance standpoint. I'm not surprised that Shakur found a way to dominate. That's just who he is. You know, he's a he gets credit for being a good defensive fighter, but he's more than that. He's a master at distance and range, meaning that I'm in range to hit you, but you're not in range to hit me. And people don't understand that for a fighter. That's terrifying. They think that they only reference a fighter being scared when they're facing another puncher. But when you miss a punch, or you try to hit a fighter and you've been working for 8-12 weeks to do that and you can't hit him, but then he hits you, that's terrifying and it's demoralizing and it's discouraging. And that's what Teofimo Lopez felt from round one. At the end of round one, I looked over and I said, he does not have any answers. He's down to one punch. So that's because of Shakur Stevenson.
Is that the sign of greatness, in your opinion, Andre, where an elite fighter can make another elite fighter look very, very ordinary?
Yes, and he's not only done it once, he's done it many times, throughout the amateurs and as a pro. So I think that's the markings of a great fighter, an all-time great fighter. And, when you can do those kind of things consistently over an extended period of time, that's greatness, not just a one-off. Everybody can have a good night, but when you can do that like that over a period of time and have a body of work like he has, that's an all-time great fighter.
We're blessed to have some really great fighters on the planet right now in different weight divisions. Where do you put Shakur when we're talking pound for pound rankings?
It's tough. You got guys who have the Usyks of the world and certain ones like that who have done it over an extended period of time. You have to give way to that. I had to give way to Floyd Mayweather. I think Floyd Mayweather wasn't in my generation, and if he would have stayed retired, I would have been number one for 4 or 5, 6 years. But he was always at the top spot, and skill sets, obviously there was things that I did well and, championships that I won and showed pound for pound quality, material as a fighter. But when you look at the time that he put in, I was no match for that. And I think that's the case with Shakur when you look at the Usyks and certain guys that may be above him right now. But the day is soon coming when he will be atop that pound for pound list.
Who do you want to see him fight next?
I'm open, man. I'm hearing the Devin Haney thing getting tossed around. I think that's an interesting matchup. You typically have a puncher or a bruiser or a brawler and a boxer. You got two elite level guys who, man, they do a lot of the same stuff, but it just looks different. I would love to see that fight. I wouldn't mind Shakur going down to 135 and holding a bet. Well, the WBC just did what they did. So
we'll talk about them in a minute.
yeah. So I would love to see him fluctuate if he can, or take a big opportunity like Devin Haney at 47.
At 40, so I was just going to ask you that. Would you encourage Devin to come back down to 140? But you're saying Shakur attempts to become a 5-weight up at 147.
If I'm helping him negotiate that, we got to figure out something. Because I mean if he's confident going to 47, cool. But he's not the biggest 140. So I'm not sure that I will go up to 47 unless I really felt like that's something that I want to do.
In the aftermath of the fight of the weekend here in the UK, we saw obviously one of our own fighters, Conor Benn, in the ring there. What do you make of that if business takes over meritocracy, I suppose, in the sport, and Conor Benn gets an opportunity to fight Shakur Stevenson?
I think it could be fun. It's a fun fight. You know, it's going to be a fun build-up. I think that Conor Benn is dangerous. He's very strong. You know what he's coming. You know what he's going to bring to the table, and you know how he's coming. And that's straight ahead. You know, he's going to step on the gas as long and as hard as he can. So I think from that standpoint, and Shakur being the smaller fighter, I think that's going to make for an interesting matchup. But I think ultimately skills and IQ and ability and ring smarts are going to win out again. I think it's going to net out with Shakur Stevenson being the dominant fighter at the end of the day.
Just finally on last weekend, a word on Teofimo. Obviously, he's been beaten by an elite guy. Where does he go from here?
I think he has a lot of fight left in him if he can recover from this loss. You know, some would say, oh, he didn't take a lot of punishment. It's like, nah, I think he did. I think he took some physical punishment. But the thing about facing a master, a great boxer, it's psychological. It sticks with you for years where you say, man, I've been training my whole life. I know I trained for this fight in training camp, but why wasn't I able to pull the trigger? Why wasn't I able to make adjustments? That kind of stuff can have lingering questions that can carry over into your next fight. So I think he can fight on if he gets the right team. And I say that because, you know, Teofimo has put his father, and I'm not saying his father hasn't done any work, Teofimo Sr. I'm not saying that he's not responsible for, you know, Teo getting to where he has. He very much has been. But I also think that Teo has bailed him out in some respects because I've listened to that corner for many, many fights now, and I don't hear anything substantive a lot of times. I hear a lot of emotional pleading and pushing and prodding. Come on, bro, let's do this. You got to fight harder. That's fine. There's a place for that. Inspiration, right? But then sometimes I need you to tell me what to do and how to do it, and I don't hear a lot of that from Senior. So I think the skill set of Teo has bailed his father out. He needed to be great last Saturday in the fight with Shakur Stevenson. He just wasn't. He wasn't great in the fight, and he wasn't great after the fight. His son was by himself all throughout the post-fight, you know, press conference and, you know, getting his medicals, and it was just a very, very sad thing to see. So I think if Teo wants to continue, A, and then B, if he gets with the right team, I think he can continue on.
So you'd encourage him to look for a new team and obviously in order to reinvigorate himself?
1,000%. I think he should have seen. And here's the thing. Roy said this on our show, Hall of Game, the day after the fight. He said Teofimo Lopez had signs before. Him and his father have had dust-ups and run-ins before where it didn't look like it was going to work several years ago, and then they got it back together. I think that was a good opportunity for him to sort of take the reins of his career and just let his father know, I love you, I want you to be my dad, but now my coach. And I think there's another opportunity now.
Have you ever seen a fighter have their hair punched off before?
Woo! Never in my life. That's why you got to be careful making statements like, I've seen everything there is to see in boxing.
Yeah.
I did not. That wasn't on my radar. I was shocked. Even when it happened, I'm in disbelief. I'm like, this can't be what's happening right now. Unbelievable. I'm lost for words, but I will say this. I don't know whose idea that was, right? But I wouldn't have mind seeing Jarrell Miller coming in with the bald head. I think it's a good look for a fighter, you know, to go in there with a bald head, and it's just a good look. But, man, he took a risk, and it backfired. But for a guy like Jarrell Miller, though, it works for him, though, because he doesn't take himself too serious. He laughs at himself. And if it's going to happen to anybody, he's the guy, because he can laugh it off, make a joke of it, and, you know, he went viral and he's still going viral, and he got a lot of attention for it.
He did indeed, mate. Listen, off the back of that show, you were obviously immediately back on the commentary duties and colour calling duties for Zuffa Boxing.
Yep.
A lot of interest here in the UK regarding Zuffa, obviously Dana White's involvement in boxing and how that is going to affect the landscape, not only in America, but also worldwide. I want to get your expert opinion on this. First and foremost, talk to me about the engagement currently of American boxing fans. We've seen Top Rank lose their television deal, for example. We're seeing Golden Boy have struggles with DAZN. Have they got a TV deal? Have they not? We've got PBC maybe only doing 5 shows a year with Amazon. So it feels like the American audience maybe is disengaged a touch with the sport of boxing. How can Zuffa re-engage them?
I don't know if they're disengaged. I think the fans are still hungry. I think they're still clamoring for matchups and big events. I just think that the individuals you just named, like something is going wrong with the deals that they have and the numbers that they're producing and their inability to woo these networks to give them big major deals again. So, and I think that has to do with us internally, not the fighters, but how the money's being managed, just all the stuff. I think it's the business side that's not lining up for these networks. I don't think it's fans not being engaged. And I also think it's how fights are being promoted. I think one of the things that Zuffa is, very, very big on is, man, like, let's give people a reason to watch. One of the things that I have, just been extremely against and discouraged about is somewhere around, 15, 20 years ago, maybe even longer, but I started hearing commentators and writers just be so negative toward a fighter. Like, the fight starts, and it's like, oh, this guy's not doing anything. And it's like, well, if I'm a casual fan, that's really what the fight is about. Because hardcore fans, they know what they like. They're going to tune in, and that's just the way it is. But the casual fan, give them a reason to tune in. And when the first round, you're down-talking a fighter that's in the main event, that doesn't bode well for the fight, doesn't bode well for the sport. When writers and now YouTubers are trying to get a name off of talking negative about certain fighters, and it's just a bunch of foolishness at the end of the day. You don't hear that when you tune into a UFC show. So I think that one thing alone is something that Zuffa is getting right and that wants to get right. And the other thing is even matchmaking and keeping these fighters active, because you may have the next Floyd Mayweather, Terrence Crawford, Andre Ward, Shakur Stevenson, but you don't even know that this guy is a diamond that needs to be dusted off and polished off because he's off not fighting. I'm looking at the bios that I study before the fights, and it's 250-day layoff, 365, a year and a half. How can you develop a fighter and get them in championship contention and make them into a household name if they're not fighting? So I think just how the fight is being viewed and approached and talked about in real time with the commentators and writers that are a part of this, and then also the matchmaking and keeping these fighters active are extremely exciting to me.
This is interesting that you've just said that, because I attended the Zuffa 1 week last Friday, all right? And I was impressed with the matchmaking on the undercard. I thought the prelims were very, very competitive. Then, obviously, when we get to the main TV part, you had a fantastic first fight, and maybe the co-main and main with Callum Walsh didn't necessarily live up to the expectation. Now, the only thing I personally thought that show lacked was those moments, those viral moments, the knockout moments, whereas you got that in Zuffa 2 in the Boharchuk fight, for example, all right? Now, my understanding of Zuffa, and please correct me if I'm completely wrong because you're on the inside of this, my understanding is exactly what you've just said there, building those lower to mid-tier fighters, getting the activity, building the names, putting them in the front rooms and living rooms of people all over America and building those stars with great competitive matchmaking. I get that, and I think, obviously, with everything that's going on with the Ali Act, which we'll speak about in a minute, I think that could then be a real good product for the American audience and hopefully the worldwide audience to really enjoy. Where I get confused then is when there's a signing of Jai Opetaia's standing. How does someone like a Jai Opetaia then fit into that model, in your opinion?
I think that's the ultimate goal. I think this is a startup that has great vision and big plans, and it starts with signing as many of the top fighters, as many contenders, as many young fighters as possible. I think this is a promotional outfit. So it's starting here, but the starting point is not the vision for the ending point. So I think you're going to see a lot more big signings like that. And he's the first, I believe, amongst many. So, he's going to get matched up, I'm sure, as evenly as he possibly can, and he'll continue to build himself within the Zuffa stratosphere, and then you're going to see other big-name fighters do the same, and I think it's ultimately going to just continue to grow.
How do you see the landscape then, say, in 12 to 24 months? And you mentioned sanctioning bodies a moment or two ago, the WBC, right? So how, if Dana White and Zuffa are not going to work alongside those sanctioning bodies, how does this model then work in the landscape?
We're going to see. I mean, this is the UFC model. There's one belt. There's not a sanctioning body, but there's one belt. You are the Zuffa champion, and I think you can also fight for the ring belt. I'm excited to see it play out. I'm not a person that is, everybody's quick to say what's not going to work. And I can say what hasn't worked is a lot of what we've done over the years. It's the norm We don't like change in boxing, even if the change isn't, even if what we're doing isn't good. We just don't want you to mess with it or touch it. Just keep it the same. I don't have the answer exactly about how it's going to fall, but I do know this. The individuals that are involved with this, the Nick Khans, the, Dana Whites, Turkey Al-Sheikh, and others, many others, Paramount Plus, they didn't get into this to fail. So I just think we have to give it time. Some of these questions will be answered over time, and I think it'll all start to make sense in time.
What did you, whilst I'm on sanctioning bodies, what did you make of the WBC trying to charge Shakur a sanctioning fee for a fight that they weren't actually sanctioning?
It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't respect it. I don't agree with it. And for, Mauricio Sulaiman to say things like, the reason you were able to sell out Madison Square Garden and fight at that level is because you have the WBC belt is absolutely crazy. Like, there is a place for a young fighter possibly winning his first WBC belt and his stature goes up, but it's not because he has the green belt, because the last time I checked, there's also a WBA sanctioning body, there's an IBF sanctioning body, there's a WBO sanctioning body, there's Ring Magazine. So, man, I just think Mauricio Sulaiman is tone deaf about what's going on, and he just doesn't understand the shakeup with fighters, and things are changing. Fighters are looking at their contracts and looking at these fine print, and they're not only asking questions, they're making stands. Terrence Crawford made a stand. Shakur Stevenson made a stand, and they are literally richer because of it, but they're also, I think, starting a trend. And I've also had my fair share of issues with the WBC, and I've had to stand and make make public stances against them because, we're not just fighters in the ring. We're fighters in life, and we feel like we're getting pressed, especially unjustly. We're going to stand for it, and I just don't think it's going to end well for, just the WBC and what they're trying to do. Fighters are not only aware, but they're making stands against this, and they don't care if you didn't get the seat that you wanted in the fight or if you didn't get, the red carpet laid out for you. The fight week is not about you. Fight night is not about the sanctioning body. It is about the fighters. Yes, we're fighting for your belt, but it's not about you guys ultimately, and I think he needs to understand that.
Another thing that Mauricio has been vocal on, and not just Mauricio, to his credit, there's been other people speaking about it as well, is the reform to the Muhammad Ali Act. I want you to speak about this purely from a fighter point of view. What are your thoughts on the reforms to the Muhammad Ali Act and how that would affect fighters?
I think it's very simple. If you fight for Zuffa and you want to fight under that banner, then you have to look at that Ali Act and see if it benefits you or not, and you have the choice. It's not eradicating the original Ali Act, but you have the choice to fight for it or you don't. If you want to continue to go and fight under the Ali Act as it was originally, written, then you have the choice to do that. I'm about choice because you may feel like the amendments are unbearable, but the next fighter says, I can live with that given the opportunity. So I'm about choice. Give the fighter choice, and they're getting a choice with this situation.
Final one from me, Andre. I've seen you obviously going back and forth with your great friend now, Mr. Carl Froch. We've been enjoying it here in the UK. Obviously, we know Carl very, very well. Toying with the idea of an exhibition and what have you. I want to talk about the idea of coming out of retirement because you have toyed with it a little bit over the years. Tyson Fury has done it several times. What do you make of him coming back out of retirement and getting back in the game?
I think he's just trying to figure it out. Retirement is one of the best things that you can do and one of the best experiences that I've had, but it's also been one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do and the strangest things. My pastor who played American football for 6 years for the Oakland Raiders, he retired after just abruptly, and he went on to do other great things. And he said, Dre, retirement is like a death. Anybody that's experienced a death in their family, it'll hit you in waves. There'll be moments where you won't be thinking about the person that passed, and then all of a sudden it'll come just rushing back, and you'll have to deal with those emotions and those feelings, and you find yourself mourning again. That's what a retirement is like for a fighter. You've done this. You're known for this. You've always had a mission. Even, when I win a fight, I know, man, in the next 3-4 months we got something else brewing. And for that to be taken away, it's hard for your brain, it's hard for your body, it's hard for your emotions to accept that even 9-10 years later. So, man, I empathize with Tyson Fury, man, with what he's going through. He's trying to figure it out. Who is he? Can I still do it? There's opportunity and money. Do I want to do it? Is it safe to do it? There's a lot of variables that people don't really like understand that a fighter has to go through, but I don't knock him for doing it. You know, I just hope that he gets to a place at some point, because he can't do it forever, where there is enough peace, there is enough purpose outside of the sport.
Does the fire ever go out, Dre?
Never. Still got it.
I could tell,
You just have to redirect it. That's what I've learned. You just have to redirect it and give yourself a new mission.
Listen, if you're doing that exhibition with Carl Froch, do it in the UK, man. We'd love to see you.
For sure. Thank you, brother.
You're a top man. Thank you very much for your time, mate. Take care.
Appreciate it.